No matter the time, morning, afternoon, or evening, any time is a good time to have coffee with the mayor. So let's join Mayor Steve Whitmire as he goes in search of the people, places, and events, both current and historic, that make our community unique.
Well, welcome to another episode of Coffee with the Mayor. As usual, I'm here with my co-host, Woody McEvers, and we have a great show today, and we are honored to have two of our Kootenai County Commissioners, Mark Eberlein and Bob Bingham, with us today, and we're going to talk some county business. And we're very happy to have you two gentlemen here today, and maybe we'll just start off by each of you just giving us a little background. Mark, you're in your second term, you're still in your first term, as Kootenai County Commissioner. Bob, you're in your first term as well. And just kind of talk about your journey a little bit up to the time you jumped into county government. Start off with Mark.
That was quite a journey.
Short journey.
Logging, firefighters, fishing industries, gunsmithing, sporting goods stores, gravel pits, oil production, construction, import, export, a lot of different things. Part-time inventor of stuff, and just a large variety of things, and even organic farming on one occasion.
Wow. So you've done all kinds of stuff, and then your time when you decided that you wanted to get involved in county government. Maybe just talk about that. Were you involved at all in any type of government prior to that?
I have been studying government for 40 years now. Always had an interest in it and concerns with what was taking place. And here I am semi-retired and kind of living the life of Riley and go on trips and be gone for a month at a time. And then now all of a sudden, why, I have a specific place where I need to be most every day. Uh-huh. That's quite the change. So it was fascinating. It's very interesting, and it's very eye-opening. And you learn a lot of things here. And some things that you thought were aren't, and some things that you thought aren't are. Mm-hmm. So it's really, that's the most fascinating thing I've found.
Yeah.
And particularly when you contact one of your prior opponents and you apologize to them for certain things that you quoted that were written in the press that were not the entire story. Kind of fascinating too.
Yeah. Bob, your journey that you took, and you've been in office how long now?
Like 10 months.
10 months.
Yeah.
So you're just completing your first year. So maybe just talk about your journey to get to the point. And I know you've been involved in politics even prior to your elected position, but talk about where you've been and your decision to jump into county government.
Well, my wife and I moved here in '08. We came over from Western Washington. We lived over there about 15 years, and we moved over here and we bought a place that was a contractor went under, and then improved that, and then we sold that and built another place. And I had a neighbor call me up, and he said, "Hey, our property rights are being injured," and he figured that I would get involved, and I started a local property rights group, and that led to the part of getting into politics. And locally here, I've been involved since I was in my 20s in one way or another. In those days, sending letters in and things like that. And then I frankly never really cared to be a politician, but I guess I reached the decision, and my wife did with me, where we said, why not in such a time as this? And so threw my hat in the ring and squeaked my way in here. So and I'd say there's a lot that I understood, but I think I've told a lot of folks that the job's not hard. If you've managed anything before, you can probably do it, but it's very demanding, takes a lot of your time. And that part was a surprise. So,
and government, because I was never involved in politics or government prior to my time becoming mayor of Coeur d'Alene, and the view is a lot different on the inside once you get here and once you figure things out. Doesn't mean that you don't abandon all of the things that you thought and the principles and ideals you had before, but it's a different viewpoint. when you get inside. Definitely. I'm sure you guys would agree to that there's a different way of looking at things once you get inside of government.
And by the way, congratulations on your recent re-elections.
It was a hard race. Fought campaign. Woody was my campaign manager, so thank you, Woody, for all the work you did on that.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Mark, I have a question. We're on EMS together, and your guys' structure is unique from what we do in the city. You know, there's multiples of us. There's only 3 of you guys. Your perspective on how that works? I mean, did you realize that going into it, or was it all just a kind of a new zone stepping in there?
I think, Woody, and once you get inside, you see how it works. So county government is different than virtually every other government. Your government is similar, city government is similar to the way the state is. So there's a governor, mayor, there's a city council, legislature. The governor appoints heads for DEQ, for fish and game, et cetera. You appoint administrators, chief of police. The president does the same thing of the United States. And Congress and Senate operate largely the same way. County government, our structure is very different than any other government because we are the council, we are the legislature, we are a quasi-judicial capacity. We do set the budgets. You have to ask the council to approve your budget for what you wish to do, Mayor. Woody has to agree with what it is you want to do. We have to agree with the other elected officials, the sheriff, the coroner, the treasurer, the assessor, the coroner, and the sheriff, prosecutor. So it's the structure of our government is very different, and I would say it's very awkward. But I think the intent was, years ago, was to keep it that way intentionally.
So I guess, Mark, let's take, for example, the sheriff's office. And I'm sure there's a lot of policies in the sheriff's office. Is the sheriff the ultimate decider on the policy, or do those policies have to be approved by the Board of Commissioners?
Each elected official, I cannot tell the sheriff what to do. I can't tell the sheriff, you will institute an express line to get driver's licenses done quickly. I cannot tell the sheriff to arrest this person or that person, or to manage your jail this way, or to keep these operating hours, or that you will embrace the policy of at will, for cause, or whatever else. Can't tell them that. The Board of Commissioners can establish a county-wide policy as far as employment matters, insurance and such like that, and we can give the sheriff X amount of dollars that we feel is appropriate, and he has to sell us on what he thinks is appropriate and that we agree with that. Mm-hmm. But once those dollars go into his spot, they're his to spend. And so there's A budget, B budget. So you got capital, you got operating, and you got personnel expenses. They have to remain within those budgets. But outside of that, they're great latitude as to what they want to do.
So in the sheriff's department, then, he has, like you said, the latitude to do a lot of things that the Board of Commissioners has no say in.
That's correct. Yes. And so does the treasurer, and so does the assessor, so does the clerk. Absolutely.
Okay, yeah.
We're just the budget authority for them.
Right. So Bob, you were involved in property tax, property rights and some tax issues and those things, and you've worked very hard for transparency in government, of which we all have, and we instituted a few months back something that's called OpenGov, where anyone can log on to get on our website and look at all of our bills and all the things that we do, and maybe talk about some efforts you've made or some things or ideas you have in transparency in the county government.
Well, and high five to Coeur d'Alene, because I checked out, your new transparency thing a while back, and one of the frustrating aspects, being on the outside, I would do occasional public records requests and ask for more information in a variety of taxing districts. And in this day and age of technology, we have the ability that government pretty much knows everything we're all up to. but it's still hard to kind of learn and know what government's up to. There's no reason why our checkbook can't, literally be online to see who all we're writing checks to. And so it's one aspect that I think all local taxing districts can greatly improve. And Idaho's done a great job. They have a website called Transparent Idaho. And you can go on there and see a variety of things. And the other area that when I worked in the energy industry, we had a way to compare one power plant to another. So it wouldn't matter if it came down to something what we call as like heat rate. You can compare a coal-fired gas turbine, one against another, and you can see how efficient it is. And so part of what I'd like to see is in all of our taxing districts in not only Kootenai County, but the federal government and so on, is just get it to where everything's there. I mean, we have the technology, and that's why I say high five Coeur d'Alene. You're moving in that direction with putting that on there. Now, in credit to our clerk's office, we have our budget books and our comprehensive annual reports, and there's a number of years that's available. It's a little harder unless you're kind of a bookworm and you like diving into pages and pages of stuff. Converting that stuff to where it's easy to digest, that citizens can look at it and say, okay, I get it. I see who we're writing the largest checks to, or how much money one county spends per citizen or per acre. And we call these in the energy industry KPIs, or key performance indicators. It allows us to compare one to another. So, and you're probably aware that I've asked for this with urban renewal districts, that when they had the special committee there, I'd like to be able to compare, and I think we can come up with KPIs that allow us to compare one urban renewal district to another. Why is that important? Well, it helps us judge the management of each one. We all know what the goal is, so how well are we doing on reaching the goal? We have 44 counties in Idaho. If we develop a set of KPIs, it would allow us to compare one county to another or one city to another. We're all different. There's things that are unique, but I just think that we can do a better job in all of our taxing districts, be they fire, schools, cities, counties, opening all that up.
That's something too that we can probably work through the Association of Idaho Cities and maybe the Association of Idaho Counties. I think we could do a better job of data sharing with all of the counties. And we are going to go next year into contract negotiations, and we have a fire union and 2 associations that we deal with on labor issues, and we probably need to do a better job in counties in sharing employment data and sharing policy data. And I think that the Association of Idaho Counties and Cities goes a certain way to do that, but I sure think we could do a better job of probably sharing data.
High five.
Yeah.
Mark, when you were running, was there any particular focus I'm going to be a county commissioner because I need to fix this or understand? I mean, usually we have some passion why we do this. I mean, the last thing I don't think you guys consider yourself politicians. I mean, those are those guys on TV that have been there forever. You're there to accomplish something, to change something, to make something better. Do you remember what those were? Are they still in the picture?
Yes, Woody, they are. It's fascinating. What is a politician? It has a bad connotation today, and reasonably so. So I posed the question to somebody one time, did it on Facebook. What's the difference between a politician and a statesman? A politician is someone who works to do what needs to be done to get reelected. A statesman is someone who does what's right. And I thought it was a fascinating comparison between the two. And so one of the things that was a starting point for me was the land use codes that were being proposed, the ULUC. I thought some of those were restrictive. We're going down a path where we're trying to make everything fit in with inside of a checkerboard with very square parameters and towards very finite. Well, it's a pretty fluid county here. We have a lot of new people coming into it, and there's a lot of stuff that takes place. Some people say, their concept of private property rights is I can do anything I damn well please on my property now with everybody else. And another aspect of it is that I can do anything as I want to on my property so long as I don't cause harm to another or infringe upon their ability to enjoy their property. And I think those are very important things to remember. It's not the Wild West anymore. We do have neighbors, and so is planning and zoning appropriate? Likely so. But to what extent and what restrictions do you place upon it? So that was a very important portion of it to me. I started on that back in 12 when it was taking place. Incidentally, that was one of the reasons I had to apologize to my predecessor. There's a lot of things out there that you didn't even perceive were problems. The jail was one that I saw coming in, and as quite a few people knew, in 2000 the drawing showed an addition being put onto the jail at some point in the future. And at that time we were proposing that rent-a-jail from Rocky Mountain Correction Center. We were going to pay $5 million a year to start with, but the rents would be changed with each succeeding year, and we didn't have any control over there. It was for a period of 20 years, and we didn't have a first right to buy it. We never had a right to acquire the building at all. And so why didn't we finish the house we started to build in 2000? And we had 2 proposals for jails later on in the 2000s and prior to Rocky Mountain Corrections, and both of them failed. They were $70, $80 million facilities. So why don't we finish the house that we started? And we had a fund balance. And so why don't we add on to that jail? And so we're going to have another 200 and some odd beds. And the entire facility is being shelled out as we speak, and we'll finish a portion of it. And so this is going to be like a $12, $13 million project. So why did we go? So that was one of my goals was to get that taken care of, because now our jail facilities should service for between 5 to 20 years. And it depends at any point in time. The sheriff can fill every cell in the Pacific Northwest. We have a lot of outstanding warrants. And so if we manage our jail correctly, then we should be able to last a long time at significantly reduced cost.
So this is something that I had just learned, is the county is working on or has finalized the purchase of a building at the corner of Foster and Government Way. Maybe talk a little bit about that building and what the plans are. I know that you're in leased space right now. I think that buying a building and putting some people maybe in lease space in that building, I don't know if that's your plan, or what's the plan for that building. I think it's an excellent purchase, by the way. I delivered papers there back in 1971, and Mrs. Hawkins that lived there, she always gave me $10 for Christmas. So I just want to let you know that. So,
High five to Mrs. Hawkins.
Yeah. So the building. What are you guys' plans for the building?
Well, maybe Bob wishes to speak with this, but we have X amount of property in downtown Coeur d'Alene where our facilities can be. And how many pieces of property are in the area that's adjacent to Kootenai County's campus? That's one of them. And there's one other little property beside it that came up for sale here several years ago, but the commissioners sitting then didn't acquire it because they felt this building on the corner would never come up. And so we don't have any immediate plans for the building, but it seems smart to acquire it when it comes available. Because they quit making property in downtown Coeur d'Alene.
Yeah.
And so it seems appropriate as far as the plans go to renovate it and use it for our offices is probably not the easiest thing to do or the best thing to do, because who do we put there? How do we provide security to it? And, do we put a department in? And if we do, what is their security needs? How sensitive is the information that they would store there? So moving forward into the future, if this is going to be our campus for the next who knows how many years, to relocate to the fairgrounds or any other place with a single high-rise, you're looking in the neighborhood of $200 million to do that. And it's most likely we're going to remain right here for a long time. The parking lot, of which across the street, which has had mixed reviews from different people, would provide parking for some time in the future. So if that building at some point in time, the state's probably going to require us to have another courtroom. They're probably going to assign us another judge. They might give us require us to have 2 more courtrooms. And being a subsidiary of the state as a county, we need to provide those services that they mandate that we will provide. So there's been talk of, a public defender's building there. We're currently renting. It's cheaper to just keep renting the building that we are renting, but looking forward into the future, we've allocated some money within fund balances to spend for justice facilities when the state tells us when, it's not if, they will. I think there's $5 million in that pot. And then the current admin building, they didn't finish the building when they built it back in '97. So those wings on the end at the top floor can be built out. One of my thoughts were that maybe the current admin building could become some courtrooms, house some judges, build the wings out on the top, provide spaces for the public defender within the building, and possibly on that corner spot go over and build an admin building that's 4 or 5 stories tall with a big space in the bottom. Instead of building a new courthouse, then just use what we have, put a new building up over there to house the treasurer, the clerk, the assessor, the commissioners, and have meeting rooms down in the lower spot.
Gotta love that kind of thinking, don't you?
It's good thinking.
It's interesting. We never hear that stuff.
Just a thought that I haven't even bounced that with around with the board yet. So
And I have a different one, but that's the thing about the 3-headed monster. We don't get to really discuss, all of our ideas and things, until it's in a public meeting. And so the venue for that, and that's the beauty when we were talking about government earlier. The one thing about having the 3 commissioners that all 44 counties use is we don't get to discuss things because 2 of us would make a quorum. And so literally we have to be surprised where, like a city council, a couple of you can talk about things and maybe run ideas by each other, and we got to kind of show up in a meeting, and then Mark can be bringing up something and it's the first time I've heard about it, and so when we talk about our facilities, it's been a couple of BOCCs ago, but they hired a consultant to come up with a facilities master plan, and it was a methodology to improve all aspects of our facilities in county government. They came up with 3 different price ranges, and they hired a firm to go out and solicit opinion from folks in the community to determine if they should float one of these bonds. And I was one of the people, was just a citizen at the time, but got asked, to provide any feedback. And I said, it makes sense to me that the justice services should be over next to the jail and the sheriff's office. And so the guy and gal who were doing the interview that the then BOCC hired said that was the majority of the feedback that they got, is that most of the people they talked to said it makes sense to have justice services over next to the jail and the sheriff's office. And so my overall thoughts is that we should be moving towards that. And so all of the courts, public defender, prosecuting attorney would all end up in one place, basically in a justice service building. To do that requires a couple other things to toggle, and as Mark just shared, his thoughts, the same thing with this. We would have to come up with a plan, a method to get from point A to point B, to accomplish that. If we move justice services, it certainly frees up on the downtown campus, the 2 buildings that currently house them. And we are maxed out. Mark's right on with that. If a judge comes, where do we put them? Because I was walking with Sean, our buildings and grounds director, and we were walking by the space beside the stairwell and went there, because there's just not a lot of space. The prosecuting attorney's office is, had to hire some new staff because of, our crime, and public defender has new regulations and requirements being pushed from the Public Defense Commission. They're likely going to expand. So we do have some facility issues that we're going to have to look at long term.
In the spaces that I've been in the county, you make very efficient use of your space in the county.
Well, I think the key point is to look at it looking into the future. When that building was put up in 1997, the county was a different place than it is today. So as we move along, we need to be looking, 10, 15, 20 years into the future when we do something. I wish they had have done that a long time ago and looked at the fairgrounds and perceived what was taking place in downtown Coeur d'Alene and the numbers of people that would be going to those buildings.
Along that thought, just before we leave that, do other counties in the same position, or is that just the way counties work?
Everybody's that
They're
way.
always pretty behind on growth and being able to have space. And I mean, are you guys unique? Are we special here?
We're special from our growth. That's one of the data points that I looked at, and both Kootenai, Canyon, and Ada are the fastest growing counties. There's a chart that I made. I went back, 30 or 40 years, and Kootenai County at that time, I think it was around the 70s, was the 6th largest county by population. Now we're the 3rd largest county. In 25 years, I think it was around 1995, the county crossed up into the number 3 position. And the way math works, at a 3% growth rate, every 23 to 24 years, our population will double. And so, and that works with about anything. So city of Coeur d'Alene, if it was at 3%, and of course the county doesn't grow evenly, right? Post Falls, Hayden, Coeur d'Alene grow faster than Worley or Harrison. And so when we consider the growth aspect, and the way our county does grow, even though it's not a huge number, 3%, it's not like massive, it's not 10% growth rate, it's a steady growth rate. I think you all had a boom between 70 and 80 and another one between 90 and 2000, where it stepped up there for a little bit, but average about 3%. So in 23, 24 years, we double. So.
And therein lies the question you asked. Are we special? All the counties in Idaho are different because there's some very small ones that have virtually zero growth rate. I think the lowest population is less than 1,000.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And so one of the things we witnessed at this last Idaho Association of Counties meeting was there's a county, a very small county, and I think it's the last one on Bob's list over there. They wanted to increase the Justice Fund maximum levy rate is 0.2%. They wanted to increase it 0.5% because at the current rate, they're not able to bring their courthouses and their jails and their facilities up to the standards that's being required by the government. And so they were asking the counties to endorse this legislation that they wanted to introduce in this next season. We don't need it. Many counties don't need it. But it's so unique because they're so different from us, and it was going to be denied. But finally, there was a unanimous vote over there to allow it on the ballot, them to approve it and to endorse it, to move it forward to the legislature. And so Coeur d'Alene's a very wealthy city in comparison to other cities. Some cities can't even afford a 20-year-old police car. Some people can't afford many things. And so here we are making rules and regulations and laws at the state level, and we must take into account all the how it affects each county and each city.
Well, I have to tell you, I talked to several mayors of cities where they have a controversial relationship with their county. And I just appreciate the relationship that the city has with you, Mark, and you, Bob, and as Chris as well, because I view it that we are a partnership, and I really appreciate that. But there's not that same relationship out there as you'll see from some other counties. But I really appreciate it. I think we've done some great things. I think that the parking lot, although some people disagreed with it, it showed a sense of partnership. And I think that there's going to be a lot of projects in the future too that we're going to have that's going to show that sense of
So
partnership.
can I throw one of those projects at you?
You certainly could, if you can do it in a minute or less.
I can do that. So in the spirit of working together, so there's a transit stop on Hubbard that's been quite controversial, as you're well aware of.
Yes.
So that stop is probably going to be removed. Looks like it's going to be. That was what the board's direction the other day was. But it's still in kind of an important place. Now, since the transit essentially is serving the city's needs, there's a spot over there that I think might be kind of handy for a stop that would alleviate a lot of the problems. So as you come down the hill from Hubbard and you cross under the stoplights, is there a possibility, and there's a wide spot over there on the north side of the road, is it possible that the city could maybe facilitate in that unused corner over there a place to where a bus could stop and drop passengers off, which would provide a better stop system, and it would also alleviate the problems up on the hill?
It's very timely that you say that. It's because we had a spirited discussion last night in regards to that, and not that specific topic, but transit in general. And we are going to have a workshop very soon with the two of you, as well as Chris Filios and the rest of your staff, so we can get together and we can talk about city, county issues, transit being probably the main topic that we'll have. So we will discuss that in the near future. And we
Sorry for
appreciate that.
taking the advantage of
No.
you on that situation, but I'm really not sorry.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys. Really appreciate it. Great show. Appreciate all you
Thanks for
do.
inviting us.
And we'll see you again soon for the workshop that we'll have on that. But
Thank you for
thank you,
inviting us.
and thank you for watching. And we'll see you again on the next episode of Coffee with the Mayor.
We hope you've enjoyed this edition of Coffee with the Mayor. Plan to join us for future programs where Mayor Steve Widmeyer takes a break and sits down to discuss issues of community interest. We would like to take this chance to thank the following sponsors for their support: Rustler's Roost and Spectrum Cable. So brew a pot of your favorite blend and sit down with us next time when we once again have Coffee with the Mayor.